Hello Nippies, welcome back to the channel, and if you're new here, hi, hello, I'm Nips, a freelance artist, and today we're going to be working on yet another Team Liquid portrait, and this time they've commissioned that I do their League of Legends player MidBeast. And for those of you that don't know, I do work with Team Liquid very often, and I have a lot of the speed paints of these sorts of portraits that I do for their website Liquid Plus, and they just have me do portraits of their players, I think almost monthly. And so usually when I do these portraits, they're mixed in with characters from the game that they play, props, environmental themes, etc. Always wearing, of course, Team Liquid attire. And this one was really fun because MidBeast requested that he be combined with League of Legends characters Zoe and Talia, and those characters have really fun powers and color palettes and designs, and so I really wanted to bring those two out. And if you don't know who the characters are, you see them in the top right, me using references for them. Zoe is kind of like, she's like this fun kind of, I think she's a god or something, and she goes through portals, and they're all very, very colorful. They've got stars, like very space themed. And Talia is kind of, I guess, think Avatar, and she's kind of like an earthbender. And so I was trying to think of ways to combine those two into something fun and not tacky, because the thing with these two color combinations is Talia has a lot of like neutral, sandy, kind of brown, earthy tones, and then Zoe has these very bright neon space kind of colors and themes. And so it was two worlds apart, and I was so worried that I would not be able to mix these two without it looking tacky. And so the one thing I knew I really wanted to do was Zoe's portal, and you'll see here MidBeast is kind of jumping out of the portal. And one of the things that MidBeast requested, you'll see a lot of reference pictures of him and Zoe in the top right. And for those of you wondering what program I'm using a program called Pure Ref. I'll link it down below. It was suggested to me by a friend a long time ago, and I have sworn by it since. It is just so good. If you're looking for a program to constantly have on the top of your screen to put your references, you can even save all the references together as a file. So if you need to constantly have one set of references always open, you just save it as a file and continuously add to it. So it's really great. But either way, one of the things that MidBeast requested was that the mood be very like uplifting and happy and kind of just really, really bright energy. And it's always really fun when the player kind of knows what they want, not just like character-wise, like what I'm gonna mesh them with, but mood-wise. It's much easier to work with, and it kind of just gives me a direction to go towards. And so I really wanted him to look like he was having a lot of fun. And so Zoe's portals are really fun, they're colorful, and it felt perfect. And then I kind of ran into an issue. I was like, how am I going to implement Talia into this? I considered adding Talia's scarf. I considered going the clothes route, but it just didn't feel right. And so I thought of adding the rocks kind of coming out of the portal with him. And I was a little nervous because as I was doing the line art, I felt like the colors were going to clash. It wasn't going to look right. You weren't going to be able to tell what was happening. But I really liked the thumbnail and the concept of it, so I decided to just go with it anyway. And it kind of worked. I really love this piece, and I'm really proud of it. And the way that it turns out is much nicer than for how much I was worried. It definitely turned out much nicer. For those of you that don't know, I am using Clip Studio Paint and not Photoshop in this. So there are a lot of times where I use exclusively Photoshop, but there is a brush you'll see in the top left. I have like an India ink tab, and the brush Bit Husky is my absolute favorite brush of all time, Photoshop and this program combined. And there are a lot of times where I will open this program just to do my line art with this brush and then swap it over to Photoshop, because in Clip Studio you can save the file as a PSD. So I'll usually just save it as a PSD and then open it up in Photoshop and finish the coloring, because I just absolutely love coloring in Photoshop. And so it's also the brush that I use for my comic Offcell, which if you guys want to check out, the links are all down below. It is 18 plus, so police yourself, be careful. But otherwise, yes, I absolutely love this brush. And one of the things that I've always talked about when I do the speed paints for these portraits is that I have to be careful about maintaining like the consistency of the style. And I have an issue always with consistency if I'm doing the same kind of style for a particular series, because obviously as time goes on you learn new things, you sometimes want to go overboard on one and then you kind of get carried away as time goes on, and it just kind of like trails off into something new. And so for these, I've always liked the style of kind of gradient flat colors with some shadows and highlights here and there. And for some reason, Clip Studio just allows me to stay in that mindset. There were several of these portraits. I don't know, I think they do have some speed paints on here on YouTube, that I kind of got carried away. And so a lot of me in this video and in some of the more recent portraits for Team Liquid is me trying to rein it back into like the original vibe. And the original one was Scream. I did one for their player, Scream. I don't know if I have a video of that one, but it's the one that I always have as a reference. At the top you'll see group 3 there, and I'm pretty sure that is the reference of him. I always have it in the same file of the new portrait I'm working on, just to keep in mind to not go too overboard and to keep the same style. So here we are working on finally putting the flats. And I think once I start putting the flats is where everything starts coming together and I really start to see whether I like the piece or not. And for this one, I actually liked it a lot more in this stage than I thought. This is where I thought everything would go wrong because of the colors of the portal and the colors of the rocks. And I'm also not very good at drawing kind of terrain. So I was really worried that not only am I not good at drawing these things, but I then had to stylize them in a way that they would match the portrait, and I was kind of freaking out. But as I put on the flats and started layering things and putting them into dimensions, I never know what to call it, like planes, like the planes of the drawing, you know, like foreground, background, midground. Then things kind of started falling into place. And one of the things that I really am bad at, which is why these portraits are kind of so fun for me, is they're a reminder to continuously practice that, is sometimes less is more. And the more experienced you get as a painter, especially if you love to do just that, you know, like paint and render and stuff, is that you don't always have to fully render something out in full detail for it to be quote unquote good, you know? Sometimes like a simple gradient, a simple, you know, stroke of a certain shade. There's the screen. There's the screen portrait. You guys saw it? Yeah, so me just making sure that we're maintaining the same style. But yeah, sometimes a stroke of a certain shade, a certain color, a certain hue, certain something in the right place will do more than 8,000 strokes of different shades and shapes and varieties. And not just that, but even textures. Textures is something that in 2023 I hope to explore more. Trying to, you know, continuously get better, hopefully, and provide myself and you guys, you know, better content, better art. And so that is something that these portraits really teach me how to do and just keep me on my toes and really learn, you know. I have a problem with over rendering, and sometimes the over rendering isn't even that good. So you really got to get better at, doing less is more, understanding the general shapes. And I think I've said this before, if not multiple times, that I think animators are truly masters at this. If you've ever seen an animator just draw a figure, you'll see how quickly they'll just draw the most expressive, emotive, emotion, figure, action, everything in just like 2 or 3 strokes. And you're like, how are you even human? It's incredible. They're incredible. If you're an animator out there, shouts out to you, because you are just, oh my gosh. And the amount of practice that they've put in order to do this is something incredible. So it's inspiring, and that's something that I really want to get better at, because it really teaches you a lot. They make it look so easy, but that's because they have a lot of experience and practice in knowing exactly where to put the line, exactly where to put the curve, exactly where to put, the volume of the line, the weight of the line rather. And the same thing goes with you painters out there that are very good with your color theory, very good with your textures and shapes and everything. And so it's all really interesting and motivating. So if those are things that you hadn't thought to practice, that you hadn't, go out there, start with me. Let's get better at these things. 2023, new goals, resolutions. Do you guys have any of those? Let me know down in the comments. But maybe I'll make a video about that. I gotta share my art goals with you guys, if I haven't already shared all of them in this video. But yeah, here we go. Going in with our gradients, trying not to do too much. We're adding some outlines to the rocks, trying to separate all the planes in the drawing, added some borders to MidBeast as well, trying to make sure we have our foreground, our midground, our background, altering the values and the saturation. We want the things in the back, really, really desaturated. We've got our foreground very saturated and dark. We've got our lighting coming from the portal hitting him, and then below we've got the kind of the bouncing light coming from the rocks in the portal as well. Desaturated, of course. We've got our, very, very saturated, kind of bordering the very drastic lighting. We've got the pinks and the oranges to really make it look like, the sun and the light is like really, really hitting him. I said sun because I don't know why I said sun, but you know what I mean, like the very bright light from the portal. And then we've got our mandatory Liquid Plus logo here, which they always tell me that I have to put, so always got to find a place to put it, usually on the shirt. And I really like where it's placed here because it balances out the colorfulness of the portal, and it kind of centers the drawing really nicely because we've got his face and we've got the logo right under, so it kind of aligns everything nicely. And I don't remember if I end up putting his name or something on the back of the shirt to just balance out that area of the drawing because it is slightly empty, but it's always fun to put this logo somewhere because I really love colorful drawings, and every time there's like a backlit like rim lighting situation, which you guys know I love, I always make the logo slightly lighter so it sticks out, and it just makes everything so much more colorful and so much more fun. So always really cool to add that in, and in this particular drawing it really balances out the drawing pretty well. So here we are going on a separate group, which I normally do towards the end of drawings. Even if they're layered, not really painted, I go on top of everything. And I kind of just add the finishing touches like that. I think it's too complicated to kind of go in and find the layer that it's at to do it. So I usually really, really enjoy towards the end of my drawings to open up a new folder and basically paint over everything. It's basically like the finishing touches, the highlights. If I have to fix like parts of the face or anything, it's all just done on a layer together on top of everything. And one of the things that I don't think we've gotten to yet was an issue that I ran into with the flames around the Zoe portal. And that was because the Zoe portal, the flames were done in a specific layer setting. And so right now, the background, this is like a default kind of gradient off black background that I use just to kind of either post the drawing or kind of emulate how the drawing is going to look on the article, because usually they put it on dark background. So I want to make sure that it looks nice on a dark background. But I have to deliver my drawing, you know, with a transparent background so they can put it on whatever they want. And I didn't realize that because of that, the flames around the portal were going to look different because the layer property was applying to the dark background. So I essentially had to go in, here you see me realizing that, and then I had to go in and basically draw the portal again. I had to, here we go, here you see me struggling. So I basically copied the whole thing, how it looks in the final product, put it on the side so I could have a reference. And then I copied just the portal, the colors without the layer, and then I implemented the colors, the final colors from the effect layer all finished, and tried to emulate that on a non-transparent, non-effect layer, and then went over it like that. So learning moment, you know, sometimes you forget how the finished product is going to be, and to take it into consideration, you kind of got to make some adjustments afterwards. But and then here you see me, I've already merged all the layers together. Like I said, merge them all, paint on top of a new layer. I went ahead and I blurred the rocks, you know, give it some extra motion and really just get him in focus and not so much the rocks and everything that's happening after. They asked me to fix the face a little bit for more likeness and stuff, so I went ahead and I did that also. Added some highlights here and there, really made him pop out on the picture. Added some more, you know, vibrancy to the light coming from behind him and stuff. And here we have the final product. They did ask me to fix the liquid logo into something else, so I didn't really have the speed paint for that, but yes, I did have to change that. So, but hopefully you guys liked the speed paint. I will be experimenting with a new speed paint style in my next video, so hopefully you guys will like that. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys thought down in the comments below. Like if you like the video, subscribe, join the Nippy family. The more, the merrier. And I will see you guys next video. Bye.